Susanna Al-Hassan is my guest. Does the name ring a bell? How many of us remember Salma Ramatu Al-Hassan, GBC? She used to read the news. One of these days, we're going to have her right in the African history class on Friday, and then she will talk to us in our Friday conversation. My brother, my sister, that was the mother. Today, we're talking about Susanna Al-Hassan. Susanna is spelled S-U-S-A-N-N-A. Al-Hassan is A-L. H-A-S-S-A-N. Susanna Al-Hassan. Now, Susanna Al-Hassan was born on the 27th day of November in 1927. Just a few years after Kwame Nkrumah was born. About 18 years after Nkrumah was born. Nkrumah always saw her as his little girl. And when we proceed in the class, you will get to understand why. She was born on the 27th day of November in 1927. And she was born all the way, my brother, my sister, in the northern region of Ghana, specifically Tamale. She was born to Dagomba parents, and she was raised in the traditional Dagomba home. When she went to school, she was ready to study hard. It was in the days when females were not allowed to go to school. Yes, females were supposed to stay home and learn how to cook and how to take care of a man in maturity so that they will bear children and keep the home. But at an early age, she wanted to go to school. She would not stop crying. And she was a beloved child of the father. So she had to go to school. She was educated in Tamale. And when it was time to go to secondary school, the father took her all the way to Achimota School. Oh, from 1955, when our heroine, my God have mercy, Susanna Al-Hassan, was only how old? 28 years. All the way to 1960, when she was 33 years. See what happened? Interesting things. She was the headmistress of the Bolgatanga Girls Middle School. After completing school and after going through her education, she was qualified enough to be the head mistress of the Bolgatanga Girls Middle School. Now, when she became the head mistress of the school, everything changed. Everybody must read a storybook. She believed that if the students grasped the English language properly, they would be able to do better. And it worked. She made sure that every Saturday, they had 2 hours of reading a storybook. She would come into the class, every class, and ask every student what storybook or novel they read. And it looked like she had read almost all the books the students ever read. She would ask them, "You, what book did you read on Saturday?" "Oh, I read this book." "How many pages did you read? Which part of the story did you get to? Were you able to complete the book?" She knew every book the students wrote. So the students nicknamed her the walking library. She knew every book. Susanna Al-Hassan. Now later you will get to understand why they called her the walking library, apart from just knowing every book the students read. But listen, when she was headmistress of the Bolgatanga Girls Middle School, she made sure every student read at least 4 books before the year ended. It didn't matter how small or book the book was. No matter how big or small the book was, you would have to read it and you would have to be accountable. She made sure that the English teachers asked questions about the books that these students read, and they were free to read any book of their choice. Today, we're talking about Susana Al-Hassan. Hey, see what happened now? Interesting things happened. While she was in the school, and everybody in the school was doing so well, unlike in those days when a lot of the schools in the north were so deprived, this one was competing with schools like Achimota School. Oh! In fact, it caught the attention of Kwame Nkrumah, and Kwame Nkrumah wanted to find out what exactly was making the Bolgatanga Girls Middle School so elevated academically. And she realized that there was a certain woman there who was working all the wonders. Now listen to this interesting thing. Now while she was there, Kwame Nkrumah decided to take her out of the school. Oh my God. And make her a minister of state. She said, I am comfortable teaching these students. I have grown to love them so much. They have grown on me. I want to remain an educationist. Nkrumah said, no. The country needs you more. Do not limit yourself to only the classroom. Once in a while, if that truly is your hobby, you can come back to the school in your free time and teach. But for now, Ghana needs you. Our heroine for today, my brother, my sister, was picked up by Kwame Nkrumah and turned into a politician. Oh my God. Some new people just entered the class. What's your name? Enda. Oh, really? Okay, all right. Welcome to the class. Are you new? Okay, sit down. This is the African history class, and today we're talking about Susana Al-Hassan. Hey, interesting things are happening. Susana Al-Hassan became a politician. And listen, this is about to blow your mind. Susana Al-Hassan became one of the women we can never ever forget in the history of Ghanaian independence and politics. How did she do it? Susana Al-Hassan, picked up by Kwame Nkrumah, became the first African woman to hold a cabinet portfolio. And she also became the first female to be appointed a minister. Her endless activism during the colonial periods helped her rise through the ranks in politics. In fact, all this while, remember when she was the headmistress of the Bolgatanga Girls Middle School. It was in the colonial period, 1955. She was there until 1960. 3 years after independence, before Kwame Nkrumah uprooted her and took her in to become a politician. In the days of colonialism, she encouraged the Ghanaian woman to read and be very firm in the English language. You cannot defeat the European if you don't speak his language. Beat him at his own language. She spoke impeccable English. You haven't heard anything yet. She became the first woman in Africa to hold any such portfolio. Oh my God. I said she became the very first African woman to hold a cabinet portfolio. And she also became the very first female to be appointed a minister in this country called Ghana. Hey. Now, what was the ministerial position she held? Hey. Listen, she loved education. So she taught from time to time. In 1966, we all remember 1966, right? She was the Deputy Minister of Education in the Kwame Nkrumah government. Oh, yes. She also became the MP representing the Northern region in June 1960 when she was removed by Kwame Nkrumah and pushed into politics. She took other ministerial positions from one point to the other. And Nkrumah simply loved her energy and power. She was an anti-colonialist. She wanted the black woman to rise to the top. And look at what she did. She organized mass education for all the people in the north and some other deprived areas right here in Ghana. What is mass education? Whether you liked it or not, you had to go to school. She was the one Nkrumah sat with and agreed that people in the north should have free education because of the deprivation that that region had been subjected to. The colonialists did not do anything for the north. Not a railway, nothing, because he found no mineral out there. But of course, human resources are still abound in the north. Same way as in the Volta region. So what did she do? She made sure that everybody in the northern region, everybody in the Volta region would go to school for free. That was what she did. She was also appointed as the Minister of Social Welfare and Community Development. She just loved to work with people, and they loved her. She was the first minister, female, in those capacities in the whole of Africa. And everywhere she went, she didn't care whether she was a minister or not. No protocol. Everybody walked up to her and talked to her. She embraced people and sat with people to talk. Her salary went into buying shoes and clothing for so many deprived people in cases where she couldn't get that from the central government. Now, because of the deprivation in the northern region and the Volta region, prostitution was so rife in those areas. In fact, people were coming in from Burkina Faso, Togo, and those other places to engage the people of the north and the Volta region in prostitution. And prostitution was so rife in those areas. Kwame Nkrumah pushed her out to single-handedly go out there and fight prostitution, which she referred to as a social evil, an enemy, and that there was the need for a crusade to fight prostitution. And look at what happened. In those days, the prostitutes were the aged women whose husbands had died and they had no way of survival. They were too weak to go to the farms, and those of them who had no children to take care of them, they became prostitutes. And in the northern region, they were simply known as Calabar. Now, Calabar is from the Arabic word Kalba, Kalbun, which means a dog. And it was picked up for aged prostitutes. In those days, young women did not do prostitution. It was only old women who did that, and they were called Calabar. Susanna Al-Hassan couldn't bear it. She was so angry to see women who had labored all their lives because of one reason or the other. They couldn't raise children, or they lost their husbands, who, of course, in those days and even up till now, were the main breadwinners of the family. And therefore, they had to resort to prostitution. In her days, she called it a social evil. She called it the enemy. And she said there was the need for a crusade. And she succeeded. All elderly women who hitherto would have been prostitutes were roped into the social welfare, just like children. And they were fed for free and educated for free. In those days, it was not rare to see an 80-year-old woman reciting A, B, C, D, taking right from the beginning. Susanna Al-Hassan, my brother, my sister, anything that has a beginning has an end. After encouraging the little girls to go to school in both this Volta and the northern region, a champion of both regions, she wrote several books. Now you know why she was called a walking library. She wrote Isa and Amina. And if you have never read this book, go out there and find them. In fact, they were originally published by the Ghana Publications, GP. She also wrote Asana and the Magic Calabash, published by Longman in 1963. All this while she was a minister of state, but she was not too busy to write. Hey. She also wrote The Two Tales. She wrote The River That Became a Lake, the building of the Volta Dam. And this was the story about the Volta Dam in the Volta region. She wrote that in 1979, long after Kwame Nkrumah had died and was gone. She wrote about it. She also wrote The River That Became a Lake, the story of the Volta River Project. They were two different books. One was about the Volta Dam and one was about the project. She also wrote The Voices of Wisdom in 1994. And the role of women in politics in Ghana, the feminist perspectives. And this was published by the Ottawa March International Center. Oh my God, all these wonderful books. I have read a number of them. I encourage you students to go find them and read them, especially Asana and the Magic Calabash. That one will take you only 20 minutes to read. Also find, especially the women in the class, the role of women in politics in Ghana, the feminist perspectives. Oh, she fell ill and she died on the 17th of January in 1997. Oh, she died at the age of 69. She just fell off 1 year to 70 years. In 2007, she was commemorated on the 50th anniversary stamp by the former president, John Agyekum Kufuor, who is sitting right here with us in the African history class. Thank you, sir. We acknowledge you and we thank you for honoring the great Susanna Al-Hassan. What did you say, sir? Oh, you met her. She was a nice woman. Oh, thank you so much. We do appreciate you. Now, the president, former president of the Republic of Ghana, is acknowledging the story that we are telling you and that she was such a great black woman. Today, we remember you, Mami. Uninyaminko wate. Mami uninyaminko. Mami, me see une yaminko, Susanna Al-Hassan. Oh, mami, why be? Mami, me see why be? She left children, a male, in fact, a female and 2 males. She was the mother of Selma Valcott, Victor Al-Hassan of Sky Petroleum, and Kasim Al-Hassan, and of course, Tahiru Al-Hassan. She left 4 children, 1 female and 3 males. Today we remember you, Mami. Uninyaminko wate. Uninyaminko. Uninyaminko. In the burden of knowledge, I ask you, how will the story of Susanna Al-Hassan impact your own life in contemporary times? How will the story of Susanna Al-Hassan influence your lifestyle and your own story in contemporary times? In the burden of knowledge, I ask you, now that you know, what would you do? Be an eniolea minio bafe, yezunda kagane, mezaka yini, ye pabango, bokaya nang, fifia yenya, nukaina wo, banayehu, ebeye den, lele ya njima singa be kunne, lele ya njima singa beri. It's been the African history class. Menake tu e konu, qu'est-ce que tu vas faire?